Hi and welcome to Z Games. Recorded live at 4ZZZ Studios in Brisbane and broadcast nationally over the Community Radio Network, Z Games brings you the latest gaming news, reviews and interviews from across Australia and around the world.
Greetings, welcome. This is Z Games, Australia's favourite program called Z Games. You're listening live on 4ZZZ. My name's Reza at the captain's helm again for this, the 224th episode of this program. And I am joined by my friend and colleague, Candy.
Oh, Reza, I said friend first. Friend.
Yep. And another friend, Mr. Jody Macgregor.
Hi. 224 episodes. Is that real or are you making that up to make it sound more impressive?
But who's counting, right?
He checks stats
You
today,
apparently.
it's real.
And I'd like to reintroduce another dear friend and co-host who has been abroad, traveling, exploring the world. He's just returned from Japan. Lee.
Hey, listeners. Thank you very much for
We've
that.
missed you.
Oh, I missed you as well.
And I'm sure the listeners have missed you as well.
Of course they missed that voice.
I missed my listeners.
Aww.
I missed having an audience.
I'll bet you do.
On this program, we're going to be talking about Murdered Soul Suspect. Jody, you've been playing that game. It's like a detective sleuth kind of thing.
Yeah, where you're a detective who is also a ghost, solving your own murder.
Weird.
I've been playing the first look alpha of Destiny, which is a space first-person shooter MMO kind of hybrid that's coming out in September.
From the makers of Halo.
That's
and
right.
Halo 2 and the other Halos.
Lee, you don't miss a beat. You've only been back in the country for a day and you're all over it.
That's right. That's all I read.
And
I should stop.
if we have time at the end of the episode, we might also talk about our E3 impressions that we didn't get to last time. But first, let's kick this episode off with the weekend gaming news headlines, Miss Candy Payne, if you will.
I will, thank you, Reza. Microsoft has confirmed that developers will have access to 10% more processing power on the Xbox One now that the Kinect motion sensing peripheral is no longer compulsory. According to a post on the Xbox website, 10% of the graphics processing unit was previously reserved for Kinect functions, which can now be used to boost graphical effects and screen resolution. However, basic voice functionality and the ability to record gameplay footage will always be enabled. This month, Microsoft introduced a standalone Xbox One bundle, giving it a $50 price advantage over Sony's PlayStation 4.
So 10% extra, that's 1091p and 66 FPS on every game from now on, right? That's what we should be expecting.
I don't know numbers, man. I play video games. What's numbers?
That's what we're all about in this industry, evidently.
Yeah, all we care about is numbers.
Yeah.
Not whether the games are any good, so long as the numbers are big enough.
And the number is higher than the other number.
Yeah, those other people next door, they better have a lower number than me.
Yeah, and if a thing that I like doesn't get a big high number on it, I'm going to be furious, and the person who gave it that number is going to get a death threat from me, because I'm a gamer.
You know what I love? This was pointless, but the best segue into the next article ever, because the world's largest video game collection has been sold for over $750,000 US. 43-year-old Michael Thomason was the previous owner of the collection that took 31 years to assemble. It includes 11,000 games and dozens of consoles and was verified by Guinness as being the largest in the world. The collection was auctioned off this week and the winner was a mysterious user known only as Peeps 10091970. Also loves numbers.
Cool.
Yeah.
I do hope that Peeps _10091970 is secretly in this room and is you, Jody.
I have enough games in my backlog already. I don't need several thousand more.
Right.
It was also sold for $750,000 US.
Yeah.
I don't have that much.
Jody might have secretly had that money that he'd been saving up.
Embezzled, what?
That explains those shoes.
Aww.
That's pretty cool. I mean, for $750,000, you get a lot of games and a world record.
That's pretty good that you can actually buy a Guinness World Record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But doesn't that cheapen the Guinness World Records a little bit?
How can... No. That's a respected organisation. How dare you impugn the Guinness World Records?
Oh, if you could buy a record, what would you buy?
I don't know, most awesome dude.
That's not
World's
a record.
strongest man.
We just have all of the men stronger than you murdered. I'll be the world's tallest man, kill everyone over 6'1".
Oh my god. And lastly, a modder has discovered code within the PC version of Watch Dogs that suggests the incredible graphical effects shown in the E3 demonstrations are present but disabled. Some of the things that the modder, known as the Worse, claims he has unlocked include NPC density, improved reflections, ultra bloom, and advanced lighting effects. He is working on a mod that returns these features to the game, and it's actually available right now.
I had a look at this. I've seen videos of people playing it with the enhanced field of distance effects that make things look blurry in that sort of photographic effect the further away they are. And it does look very pretty, but it also looks borderline unplayable because things on the other side of the street have that bokeh effect where they look like the bin near you, very crisp. The people shooting at you on the other side of the street, just sort of a blur. But a very pretty blur.
Now, if you were being shot at, though, Ray, Jody, and it's been a while.
We've all blurred together for you.
Yeah. I assume everyone that is shooting at you is probably already going to be a blur due to probable panic, looking for your gun.
Oh, you think this is realism?
Exactly.
It would be the only bit of realism in Watch Dogs.
Hey, a man can wear a hat like that. That's
all right.
Creepy dudes who are obsessed with their phones do wear big jackets.
Yes.
Face masks.
Yep. Talking seriously for a moment, do you think that this was done intentionally to make the PS4 and Xbox One versions look on par with the PC version?
No.
What do you think they were?
I think this was a bunch of features that were, maybe 90% complete, and they were hitting the deadline, and the cost of that 10%. To get them actually working and playable was something that Ubisoft decided not to bother with. It does seem like all of this stuff is there, but wasn't quite good enough to be playable. And given the delays that Watch Dogs suffered from, I assume that they just gave up at some point because it was something that would only sell more copies of the PC version, and they figured they were probably going to sell a lot of them anyway.
Yeah.
So that little bit of extra cost wasn't worth it. In software development, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
A feature is 99% complete, and the person with the money says, it's not worth spending that extra 1% because we just want to get this thing out the door.
It is interesting that all of those functions in the config files are labeled E3 effect. I thought that was cute. That's that certainly does feed into the conspiracy, even if the more logical solution is just that, someone said we can't put this in, we have to get this game out the door.
I'm a fan of conspiracies.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that.
Lee, are you playing the PC version of Watch Dogs?
I am, yes.
Yep. Would you be willing to give this mod a go?
Absolutely, yeah. Because the PC version is also quite badly optimized, and I have heard that this mysteriously fixes a number of hitches and memory issues that the game has, so I would like to be able to play this at the proper capacity for my monstrous computer that I built specifically to play Watch Dogs.
Yeah. I've noticed a few PC gamers online after the game was released were complaining that when they cranked their settings to Ultra, they weren't getting anywhere near what the showcase at E3 showed. Yeah, so that was a big bit of a shitstorm.
Yeah, the numbers weren't high enough.
I want big numbers because of the big numbers that I had to create in order to acquire all of the bits that go into this big computer. Yeah, in that it was expensive. And I don't regret a thing.
I'm just picturing you sitting at home with one of those 1960s, late 1960s computers, which is just the epic ceiling to floor, wall to wall, turning dials and paper coming out of it and making weird beeping noises. The more you talk about your giant computer.
Yeah, it's like it's the Bat computer.
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining.
But the one from the old Super Friends cartoon though, where I have to feed punch cards into it, and it sort of just beeps at me. Yeah.
Up with the times. Yep.
Well, that's it for this week in gaming news headlines.
You are listening to Z Games, your favourite radio show about video games. Mr. Jody Macgregor, you have been playing a ghost detective story where you are a detective ghost solving your own murder.
That's correct.
Yes. That sounds great.
It does sound great, and it's not the first Ghost Detective game, though. There was a game on the DS, which you can get on iDevices now, called Ghost Trick, where you were a ghost solving your own murder. This is quite different to that because where that was sort of cute and animated, this is much more grim and serious. You are Detective Ronan O'Connor in Salem, Massachusetts, and you've been murdered by a serial killer who you have to track down
Of course it's in
before you can
Salem.
move on.
Like, you hear Salem and you just associate witches and ghosts and, like, I don't know why. I'm sure Salem's a really lovely, pleasant town and it has nothing to do with ghosts. But it's immediately where my head goes.
Yeah, I bet the people who live in Salem are really, really sick of their town being like the setting for horror stories.
Yeah.
And
It's
Halloween
probably
parties.
really nice.
Yep.
And
probably a lovely spot.
you leapt straight to ghosts and witches. He didn't even mention witches. This is a game about detectives.
Yes.
Are there witches in this detective ghost game in Salem?
Of course there are.
Oh, boom.
But hilariously, Detective Ronan O'Connor doesn't realize that.
What?
There's a point halfway through the game where this serial killer you're tracking who has been burning, hanging, and even drowning women. You see a flashback where he dunks a woman in a pond while she's trapped to a stool.
This is to find out she's a duck, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
You have to go to a museum and look at a whole bunch of exhibits about witches and the executions, and only then does he go, hang on a second, that's how the killer's been. He thinks they're all witches, which everyone knows 5 minutes after the start of the game. So you're not a brilliant detective,
but
Ronan O'Connor.
You've got to be methodical. You can't just jump to conclusions in the way that maybe you did, Mr. Amateur Armchair Detective. He did all the legwork, the ghostly legwork, went to the museum, saw the thing. So, if anything, he should be praised for his methodical method that probably leads to a whole bunch of arrests.
Yeah, I'm not sure that ghosts really are known for arresting a lot of people. I'm not sure their evidence holds up in court.
It's true.
Was he, when alive, a detective?
Yes.
Or is he, like, moved into the other world and is now a detective in the other world?
No, you were a detective when you were alive, and you sort of get called in at the start of the game, and something suspicious is happening, and the killer spots you and kills you, and from then on you're investigating. So you do the investigations like a detective would, but without being able to touch anything or talk to anyone.
Oh, so nobody can see you. You're like spirit.
You can see and talk to other dead people, but the living can't see you.
Brilliant.
Now, this sounds a little bit like L.A. Noire, another recent detective video game story. But my favourite parts in L.A. Noire were the talking to people and touching things bits, particularly the touching things bits, because there was a whole minigame around moving your hand using the controller, and I just used that to make dead people nod and shake their head, which is really disrespectful for the recently murdered. So how does this work if you can't do all of that fun stuff as a ghost?
You have ghost powers you can use that make up for some of that. You can possess people and read their thoughts. So rather than actually questioning witnesses, you pop into their head and then maybe trigger something in their mind to make them remember what they've seen. Like you're just popping into the head and going, think about the killer. And then they have a little flashback where they remember what they saw.
Oh, that's going to be a whole lot more reliable than having to ask them a question.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And it does have the one L.A. Noire thing of wandering around a crime scene, looking at all of the evidence. Those parts are just like L.A. Noire, except for the fact you can't pick up and move things around. So you're wandering around inside the crime tape, looking for stuff that you can click on. Like in an old adventure game, like in a LucasArts kind of adventure game, only... No, it's exactly like it, because what was annoying about those things was that the hotspots that you were supposed to be clicking on were kind of arbitrary.
Yeah.
Like in a Gabriel Knight, sometimes you would...
Now, that wasn't a LucasArts game.
No, you're
Don't
right.
impugn them.
All right. But Gabriel Knight was another game about being a detective where you would sometimes be looking for clues and you would click on the wrong blade of grass and not find the clue that was hidden behind the blade of grass slightly to the left. And Murdered Soul Suspect has a little bit of that because the press X to look at this thing cue doesn't always pop up when you're standing in front of the thing you want to look at. You have to walk backwards and forwards and fiddle with the camera to get the exact right angle. Sometimes I was spending like 5 minutes just wandering around trying to line things up exactly so that I could actually look at them and then have Detective O'Connor go, that looks like a clue.
Oh,
Boy, that sounds tedious.
Yeah, no, it was really annoying. It didn't happen all the time, but it happened often enough to be quite frustrating. But between the investigations, rather than like driving around or doing all of the other things you do in LA Noire, you do ghost stuff. There are...
Do you get to go boo?
No, you don't get to go boo. You get booed at. There are these demonic, wraith-like ghosts who've not been able to move on, and so they've gone mad and evil, and they have like these cowls, and they float around looking much nastier than you, whereas you're just like a dude in a trilby and a waistcoat who looks like he works in a bar somewhere.
Oh man, that guy deserved to die.
what year is this set in?
It's set today.
Huh. People
Yeah.
dress like that today.
Yeah,
Well,
they
you
do.
have tattoos as well, so like you're
Genius.
totally up to date. But these evil ghosts are stalking the town, so you have to do this sort of a stealth game where you're trying to get past them to get to the next section. They can eat you. They think that
What?
they can sort of consume your soul, which is how they keep living
Are
for
they
hundreds and hundreds of
Pac-Man?
years. They're the Pac-Man ghost, basically.
Except they eat other ghosts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is you.
right.
So you can hide from them because there are these sort of shadowy remnants all over the town left behind by ghosts. Like when you walk through stuff, you leave this glowing outline on the wall.
Ectoplasm.
Yeah, ectoplasm. So you can see that's a useful
Ghostbusters
thing
was on
for
last
like tracking down, hidden things on the other side of walls. Like you can see those and then follow other ghosts around. But you can also hide within those things, and these weird sniffing wraith beasts will not be able to find you. So you sort of have to teleport from lump of ectoplasm to lump of ectoplasm while these horrible, creepy things float around chasing you.
Is that fun?
It is a bit fun. It's tense, and at first it's quite scary. But towards the end of the game, you do get sick of it because you have to do it quite a lot.
So it seems like they couldn't quite figure out how to turn the investigation stuff into a video game, so they shoved a stealth game in there in between to remind you that you're playing a video game.
There is a lot of stuff shoved in between to pad it out. Like there's a lot of collectible hunting.
Oh, hooray! Video games.
All over Salem, there are weird ghostly objects that you can collect, and they will give you a little bit of backstory. Or if you collect a whole set of them, you'll get to hear like a spooky ghost story about something weird that happened in whatever location you found all of those collectibles in.
Right.
But it does just seem like stuff wedged in to prolong what is actually a pretty short game.
When this was first announced, it seemed to me to be like one of those adventure games that still get made that don't get really marketed, that just get made by a company in Germany and then go to all the PC enthusiasts who live sequestered off by themselves and don't really talk to other gamers. And yet I saw that it was getting a big release and a next-gen release. And it was very strange. And now I know how they managed to sell it on the PlayStation and what have you, just by wedging all those other video game staples in there.
Yeah, there is a lot wedged in. Some of which is interesting, though.
Yeah.
To get around Salem, you have to sort of navigate carefully because even though you're a ghost, you can't walk through all of the walls. Salem has been consecrated in the past by, earnest religious folks, and that means there are places that as a ghost you can't get into. There are glowing walls all over the place that you can't cross like a vampire who can't be let in, or sort of like a cat who's just waiting outside the threshold. If somebody opens the door to a building, then you can go in, but otherwise you can't. So you have to... There's sort of a puzzly element to actually getting around the town.
Is there a scene where your ghost character first learns that he can't go through every wall, where he bangs his head?
Well, no, because there's a part at the start of the game where you think you're still alive, you haven't realised you're dead yet, and then you try to open and somebody smacks you in the head with a door. So kind of you do get that a little bit.
Okay.
We are talking about Murdered Soul Suspect, which is a supernatural detective thriller game. Jody, you've been talking all about it. Now, you can possess people, you can infiltrate their brains and stuff like that, but you can also take over cats, right?
Yes, that's right. When you're possessing humans, you can just sort of read their surface thoughts, but cats you can actually control.
Can you read their surface thoughts as well?
They don't seem to actually have any.
Wouldn't it
They
be
just do stuff that you tell them.
Would Just be like,
So
I like fish.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Do people then looking at the cats think there's something amazing about the cat that's like walking around looking at things like a human?
No.
Oh.
No one pays any attention to the cat.
Because cats do outrageous things routinely anyway.
Yeah, cats are always staring at things that aren't there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
They're, all of those cats are possessed by the ghosts of men who are trilbies.
so do you get put on YouTube midway through this game?
I wish you did. As a cat, the best thing you can do is press Y to meow.
Oh, that's good.
But as well as just randomly pressing the Y button to meow, you can get into areas that you as a ghost might not be able to get to. You can climb up areas, whether it's to investigate something at the top of a building or just to hunt for more collectibles. But hunting for collectibles becomes a lot more fun when you're a cat who can jump and climb and move around Salem in a completely different way.
But if you're a ghost, can't you like fly or float or,
You do
do that?
learn to teleport partway through the game.
Yeah.
But before that point, your getting around is much more limited. Something interesting that it does is that as well as all of these ghosts of people that are around Salem, there are ghosts of buildings and things that used to be there, and those you can't move through. So like in the middle of the street, there'll be like an overturned cart from like the olden times, and it's a ghost cart. So you have to find another way around it, or there'll be like half a ship sticking out of a building. There's a ghost train that runs through the middle of the museum.
I like this in theory, but I do find the idea of a ghost cart patently hilarious.
Oh no, it is.
Did
It's
someone
very...
run a sword through it in...
No, it crashed and then I assume just burst into flames. Actually, there are also burning buildings that are just the ghosts of burning buildings,
Right.
and they're perpetually on fire and sort of half fallen down, which are very neat to explore.
Is it like visually, is it then that things have been built over the top? So if you see the burning building, can you see the real actual building that's been put over the top of that? And are you looking at like a double layered building kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, you can see the two sticking out of each other. It's like the scabs of the old buildings are still there, and sometimes you see them overlaying the walls or protruding through the walls, or you might see them where, in the middle of a street that now has no buildings in it, there'll be these ghost buildings there.
That's
from
cool.
the way the town used to be laid out, and you have to navigate around those, whether by possessing a cat or figuring out how your teleport ability works, or just like walking the long way.
And the story of the game, I imagine that the story must be a big focus and motivation for the character. Is that any good?
It starts out well enough, but unfortunately it doesn't build to the kind of twisty climax that you really want from a murder mystery detective story. It doesn't really have the payoff without spoiling anything. I got to the ending, was like, that's it. It's a little bit predictable and not really the kind of ending that will make you go back and think, oh, that's amazing. I'm looking at everything in a completely new light now, which is what you want from the end of a mystery story.
Yeah.
It does this thing in the investigations. You collect all of the clues in an area, and then they pop up at the end, and it's like, now you must select which is the most important piece or pieces of evidence. Sort of like in Phoenix Wright,
Right.
where you're in the courtroom and you're trying to explain why somebody's witness testimony doesn't make sense, and you have all of this evidence. You have to pick which is the relevant piece of evidence. And like in Phoenix Wright, sometimes you know what happened, but you have to pick the object that explains to the video game that you know what happened.
Yeah.
And that can be a bit arbitrary and weird.
Yeah, that happened to me all the time in LA Noire, where the murderer was right there, and I
Yes.
had all the things, and all I wanted to say was, your fingerprints are on this knife. And Cole would be like, so you used this knife to make some jam, eh? What's with that? And then I would let him go,
Yeah.
because I somehow couldn't
You
link
didn't
those
get the
things
right
together.
line of questioning, or you didn't see the guy twitching his eyes, or there's something
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know whether we have the technology yet. I think we probably do if we put any thought into it. But we haven't yet shown how to make a detective game involving accusation and a lot of evidence really work in a narrative.
Yeah, you don't have the accusations here, but you do have the evidence, and it has the exact same problem. There might be multiple pieces of evidence that point towards the conclusion, and the thing that led you to the conclusion is not what it wants you to pick. There are two old people who've murdered someone in one of the side story missions in this, and There's a newspaper in their house that explains a perfect location to hide a body, for instance. And
Is that a front line? Like,
yeah,
is that a front
hide
page
all your
headline?
bodies here. Just an ad for like the corpse dumping area. No, but there's a story that suggests, oh, that would be a very good place for them to have dumped the body.
Yeah.
But you have to read the mind of the old man and hear him complain about, oh, it was such a long drive out to that place that was conveniently a perfect body dumping ground. And that's the piece of evidence you're supposed to select. But if you select the other one, it's like, oh, we have to go back and do it again. And at the end of the game, in particular, when the final chapter plays out, which only has one checkpoint in it, having to do stuff again gets very annoying.
Are you like competing with alive detectives? Is there anybody else actually interested in your murder, or are you just floating around as an angry ghost trying to sort this shit out yourself?
No, there are police, but they are pretty useless.
Yeah.
Like you do break into the police station at various points and try to figure out, like, have they got any leads so far? And they basically haven't. They're just sort of rubbish, inept small-town cops.
To be fair, though, the guy who died was wearing a trilby and a vest. Like, I wouldn't put too many police resources on that murder. Probably a Redditor.
We're talking about Murdered Soul Suspect, which, Jody, you played on the PC, but it's also available for...
PS3, PS4, Xbox 360,
Are the
and
comparisons
Xbox
to L.A. Noire justified? Do you think if I enjoyed that game, I'd also enjoy this one?
Only if the bit you enjoyed was the crime scene bits where you look at stuff, because that's the only bit that has any similarity to L.A. Noire.
Also the hats.
Yeah, also hats.
Oh, yeah.
The hats aren't as big.
Yeah.
The hat at least fits you, rather than those huge hats that were just swimming around on the heads of the L.A. Noire characters.
Yeah.
All right, you're listening to Zed Games. Next up, we're going to be talking about Destiny.
Hello and welcome back to Zed Games. You just heard Impetus from the soundtrack to Bit Trip Runner. Now, Ray, you've had a go at the very, very early version of Destiny. Before you tell us about playing that and shooting a lot of stuff, this is the game where Peter Dinklage is the narrator, right?
Yeah, well, he's actually a robotic companion. You kind of have a little cube that pops up, and it's like an AI, and it gives you mission objectives, and it kind of tells you a bit of the backstory about the planet and the events that have unfolded.
I did watch it like a YouTube supercut of some of his dialogue from this, and at one point he says, "That wizard came from the moon."
Yeah.
Have you got to that point yet, and is it amazing?
Yeah, it's pretty funny, although I didn't realize how hilarious it was at the time. I kind of just...
It just washed past you?
It washed
You didn't
past
even
me.
notice when Peter
Not
Dinklage
really.
said, "That wizard came from the moon."
Like, what else was happening to distract you
Well,
from the Moon Wizard?
I was aware of the moon wizard, right? Because I had to kill it, and it was in my face and shooting bolts at me. I was much more focused on the battle itself rather than the narration. Yes.
So Destiny is a game where you fight moon wizards with the assistance of robot Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
How can I play this game immediately?
You can't. It doesn't come out until the 9th of September. But you can jump in on the beta, which opens up on the 27th of July. If you're a PS4 owner, you can start playing then. Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with the alpha. I could only play over the weekend. And I wasn't really interested that much in the game before I started, but now I'm kind of this mindset where I need to play this game. I've actually pre-ordered it so I can get beta access. Yeah, I'm probably buy this game day one.
Look,
You were hooked then.
That moon wizard story has pretty much convinced me as well. I don't even have a system that it runs on.
What kind of character were you playing, by the way? You can make your own character in this, yeah?
Yes, so there's a choice of 3 races and 3 classes. You can be a human, an Arisen, which is a blue alien, or an Exo, which is a robot. And I chose to be an Arisen. You can be a male or female. I chose to be a female. And then you can choose 3 classes. You got your Titan, which is your stock standard kind of soldier or a tank. And you've got a Warlock, which is a sort of a mage sort of thing.
Some sort of alien wizard
Yeah,
from
and
space. A moon,
perhaps. Yeah, well, you can be a human as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a hunter, which is like your rogue kind of archetype. Yeah, so I chose to be a warlock for my first playthrough, but then I went back and checked out the hunter as well. But the story kind of takes place on Earth. It starts out there, but I think that you travel to other planets later in the game. But for this small section of the game, you're on Earth in old Russia. the landscape's all barren and desolate except for some aliens that have taken over the place, and you sort of have to go through and explore this satellite station. And there were a few game modes, but they all centered around this one location in old Russia. And it was quite a large, semi-open location. It's not like you can see like mountains in the distance and go there, but it's quite large.
So this it's a first-person shooter.
That's right.
And it's set in the future with alien, robot, human factions
Yep.
shooting each other. What makes this game massive and multiplayer?
It's not really massive multiplayer, but it has like elements of that genre. First thing you'll notice is when you shoot enemies, little numbers come out of it, like in Borderlands, for example.
Oh, we love our numbers.
Yeah, and you find loot which is dropped by enemies, and there's like ranks of loot from your crap loot up to your legendary loot that you can only get if you beat sweet bosses.
So you see the damage and then you get treasure.
Yeah,
That's what role-playing games are all about.
Yeah, that's
well,
true.
you've got like
Seeing
slots
numbers.
you got slots for each of your body parts. So you got like a helmet.
Each one? How far? How much detail does this go into?
Not much. Yeah, you got a helmet, a vest for your torso, gloves, and
Rings?
This is a first-person game, though, right?
Yeah, so
does it matter what you look like?
Not really. But when you go to your sort of hub, which is a floating spaceship above Earth, the game is viewed in third person, and that's where people are going to be hanging around and showing off their sweet legendary gear.
Is there dancing?
There is.
Good.
Oh, well, then it's
Yeah.
definitely an MMO.
Yeah.
If there's dancing,
So
then it
you
counts.
can sit in the middle of town and dance, and then AFK for 3
You can't
hours.
sit and dance.
You're in Russia.
Park,
You could do.
sorry,
Yeah.
park yourself in the
Yeah.
middle. Yeah.
So, were there many other people playing at the same time as you? Did you watch other people run around and jump a lot?
Yeah, it's very instant, so it's not like an traditional MMO in the fact that everyone's occupying the same world and there's like dozens of people running around. There's only sort of 3 or 4 other people in one area at the one time, and they kind of drop in and out like in Journey, when you're sort of cruising around the world, and then other players will kind of seamlessly just join your game, and then when you get ahead of them, another person will join in their place. It's kind of like that. Although you can join fire teams of your friends, and that sort of bands you together in a squad so you can go through different areas together.
Did you play with other people?
Yeah. So there's a story mode which is very short. It's only one mission, and when you go through and there's people just doing their own thing, and you can fight baddies together or just ignore them and run past them if you like. And that was over pretty quickly. But then there's another mode which is called Explore mode, which is where you drop down to the planet and you run around and you pick up missions that are contained within beacons, and that's kind of like your basic MMO leveling up kind of thing. You're free to explore the entire area, and you just run around and do missions which are mostly composed of kill X number of baddies to get this item that they're holding.
That does not sound very next-gen to me.
Yeah, it actually is good because the combat is really... Well, it feels pretty much just like Halo. Like the minute-to-minute gameplay is really spot on, but then you have this added depth where you also have this long-term goal of, hey, I'm going to save up enough currency to buy this sweet gauntlet. And, these gauntlets bestow powers upon you, like reducing cooldown times of your various abilities, or they might give you extra like ammo carrying capacity and stuff. And you also have a super attack, and that's on a cooldown. So each of the different classes has a different attack. The Warlock can sort of throw a grenade, and people get trapped in like this stasis bubble, and it damages them. And the Hunter can like summon a golden gun from the heavens, and it's got 3 shots that are pretty much insta-kill.
Okay, that does sound kind of cool.
Yeah. And they're all on cooldowns. So same with your grenade. So that's sort of as well inspired by MMOs in that way.
Is there much other difference between the classes, or is it just that one superpower that each one has?
There are a few differences, like the Warlock, when you jump, you can sort of hover, like, I don't know, Princess Daisy in Mario 2. You kind of jump up and you can slowly fall back to Earth, whereas the Hunter can just straight up double jump, which I felt was the superior ability.
The superior mode of jumping.
I think so. And then there's also a raid mode, or it was called a strike, and that's where you go through an area with a bunch of other players, and then like at the end of the area there's a boss that takes like 15 minutes to beat, and that's like your raid boss, and it has attack patterns that you have to adjust to and stuff like that.
What's that like in first person?
It's pretty tough if you're underleveled.
Right. Is it fun though?
I thought it was pretty fun. You have to sort of shoot your gun, and then when you're out of ammo, take cover, and then the boss I fought was like a giant glowing sphere with a giant laser eye, and it kind of floated around and shot lasers at you, and you could tell when the eye was looking straight at you because, it kind of snapped to focus on you, and when you did that, you had kind of like a split second to get into cover before you're decimated by lasers. So it takes a bit of teamwork. You kind of have to rely on the other people within the raid to do their part as well. So it had that kind of dungeon feel that you get when you're running dungeons in an MMO.
So did the alpha give you a sense of what the finished game is going to be like?
Yes, it was only one area and a few game modes, but it gave me an idea. Yeah, what I saw I really liked. The way I'd describe it to someone was you take maybe 2 parts Halo, 1 part Borderlands, 1 part Mass Effect, and a sprinkling of Monster Hunter, put it in a blender, and it's just delicious gamey goodness.
So is this a game where people will have to pay a subscription fee every month, or is it a buy it and then you play forever?
It's a buy it and play forever.
Right.
Yeah. At the start, I wasn't that interested in the game. I sort of had the opportunity to play it because I was one of the lucky ones that got chosen to participate in the alpha. By the time it was done, I'm in full hype mode. I can't wait for September 9th when this drops. But I'll give you, just before I go, I'll give you one little word of advice. If you pre-order the game, if you're as interested in playing the game as I am, if you pre-order it, you get a code to join the beta on July 27th. Now, I don't know if this is like ethical or not, but what you can do is you can pre-order, put $10 down, and you get the code instantly, and then you're under you don't have an obligation to buy it.
Yeah, I can see where you're going.
Yeah, right, okay. So
you could cancel your pre-order.
Don't finish that. Just let the skeevier listeners put 2 and 2 together and work out what it is that you did.
Yep. I've just been talking about Destiny, which is for the Xbox One, PS4, PS3, and Xbox 360. Unfortunately, no PC version has been announced.
Which is weird,
yeah.
I thought.
Yeah, being an MMO.
Yeah.
That's where they tend to live.
And being a game that is a first-person shooter on the internet that's made for the next-gen consoles, it wouldn't be hard to port it. So that seems deliberate.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Zed Games. As usual, guys, thanks for listening. You can find us on Facebook. We are Zed Games AU, same handle on Twitter as well. Or you can go to the iTunes store and search for us to find the podcast there. Next week, we're going to be talking about a game that I'll be playing, UFC.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ultimate Fighting.
That's right.
I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
No.
Can I come to your house?
I guess.
Good.
I've only got one controller, though. Because it's for the PS4. I mean, I don't have the extra $100 to buy a second controller yet.
What kind of console haver are you? A poor one.
I guess I'm a
evidently.
lone wolf.
Yeah.
Catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.